ఇప్పుడు మనము నెక్స్ట్ సెషన్ కి వెళ్ళబోతున్నాము. దాని గురించి మనకు చెప్పడానికి డాక్టర్ గాయత్రి మేడం గారు వీడు మనకు స్టాండర్డ్ ప్రికాషన్స్ గురించి చెప్పబోతున్నారు. ఓవర్ టు యు మ్యామ్.
Yeah, good afternoon everyone. I'm Dr. Gayatri and today I'm going to talk about standard precautions. Okay. And Dr. Ratnamani ma'am made my job little easy so that I can skip some of the slides of my presentation and we can move fast. Okay, am I audible to everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. And in the last class lo manamu what is the infection chain, what are the pathogens, route of entry, route of exit, what are the reservoirs of infection, and what are the modes of transmission. We have come across all those topics from Dr. Rajan sir and other speakers, Reddy sir and everybody. So we have come to a place where we know how an infection spreads in a hospital acquired situation. In a hospital, how the hospital acquired infections gets transmitted from a person to person or a cross infection. Then how to break the chain is my topic. Okay, we can break the chain in multiple points, like by killing the pathogens and controlling the reservoirs by doing the environmental disinfection protocols like chlorination of water, safe drinking water and food provision, and sterilization of the instruments and the material that we use on the patients, and proper sewage treatment of the drainages, and biomedical waste disposal, and insect control and rodent control. And we can't prevent the control, but we can provide a safe contact with the PPE wearing and hand hygiene. And by preventing the escape of the organism from the patients by providing PPE to the patients also, and by wearing PPE by the healthcare workers, and by following the protocols like covering the respiratory secretions and oral secretions and covering the wounds. And we can prevent the transmission again by wearing the PPE and following the occupational safety protocols that are covered by Dr. Ratnamani ma'am, and by following the post-exposure prophylaxis. And we can block the ports for the susceptible host patients, like by providing the device care, like the line care, central line care, peripheral line care, catheter care, like all those things. And by providing the patients an isolation precautions, separating them into separate rooms, depending on their susceptibility status, and barrier nursing, and aseptic techniques, and by providing frequent and periodic health education to our healthcare workers, we can break the chain at multiple points to stop the spread of these hospital-acquired infections. Coming to the aim of this hospital-acquired infection protocols, HIPC, disease transmission can be prevented by breaking the chain at multiple links. Okay, the risk control can be done by two levels of protocols, Tier 1 and Tier 2. The Tier 1 is the standard precautions that I am going to cover, and the Tier 2 is the transmission-based protocols that are covered, that will be covered soon by Dr. Mustafa Afgal. And what are standard precautions? These are the minimum infection prevention practices that apply to all patient care, whether suspected or a confirmed infection patient, whatever be the patient status, in any setting where healthcare is delivered. These practices are designed to protect the healthcare workers from HAs and also to prevent the spread of infections among the patients, the cross infections. And we can compare our hospitals with the sacred rivers. The sacred rivers, we have so many in our country, like Ganga, Yamuna, Brahmaputra, even Godavari, Krishna for our state. Okay, we believe that by taking a dip in the river, we get rid of our sins. Okay, manam nadi punya nadillo snanam cheyadam dwara mana paapalnu manam pogattukuntamu. So it doesn't mean that the river is full of sins. So oka 1000 mandi snanala tarvata 1000 mandi dip tarvata it means that river is full of sins. No, it has its own mechanism of taking over all those sins and dissolving all of them, and again being sacred. Okay, at the same time, hospitals are crowded with patients. There are multiple types of patients coming up with different types of infections, gram-positive organisms, gram-negative organisms, tuberculosis, viral infections, fungal infections. It doesn't mean that hospital has to be filled with infectious organisms, but we should have a mechanism to clear those infections from our environment and provide a safe environment to the patients. So that is the purpose of standard precautions or universal precautions that we apply in our hospitals to make our hospital environment safe to everyone, not only to the patients, but also to the staff that are working in the hospital. The different standard precautions or the first and foremost is the hand hygiene. The second is the respiratory hygiene. And next is third one is the PPE. Fourth is the prevention of sharp injuries and safe handling of patient care equipment and principles of asepsis and the environmental infection control. These are the standard precautions for any hospitals. The first and foremost is the hand hygiene. As per WHO guidelines 2009, hand hygiene is the single most important measure for prevention of infections. Hands can become contaminated with the infectious agents through contact with the patient or patient surroundings or the environment where the patient stays or with the other healthcare workers' contact also. So the hand hygiene removes dust, soil, organic material, and the transient microorganisms that whatever we catch by contact with the patient or patient environment, all those transient microorganisms can be get rid of with this hand hygiene so that the cross contamination can be reduced. Hands of the healthcare workers are the most common vehicle for the transmission of healthcare associated infections. So there is a direct correlation. There are multiple studies proven that there is a direct correlation between increased adherence to hand hygiene reduces the hospital acquired infections. Even during the COVID also, this is proven. There are different types of hand hygienes we follow in our daily life. First is a routine or social hand wash, what we do regularly. Okay, it just with the soap and water we do it and it removes the soil and the transient bacteria. Next is the hand wash we do in our healthcare setups. It is the removal and destruction of transient flora using antimicrobial soap and water that we do it 40 to 60 seconds. When hands are visibly soiled, we do it with the soap and water. Next is the hand rub, that with the 2cc gel or alcohol-based hand rub, we do it for 15 to 20 seconds. And the last one is a surgical hand scrub. This is for removal or destruction of transient flora and reduction of resident flora using antimicrobial soap with effective rubbing. That is for 3 to 5 minutes, we'll do it. There are 5 different movements recommended by WHO where the hand hygiene is mandatory. That is before touching a patient or before doing any procedure or after a procedure or exposure to blood and body fluid, or after touching another patient, the second patient, and after touching a patient's surroundings also. So in all these places, we have to do a mandatory hand hygiene. These are the popularly known as the 5 movements of hand hygiene by WHO. And hand wash, where we do the hand wash, the indications are the before starting the work, the day before the morning one, when we go into the shift, we do the hand wash. And after finishing our work break also, we'll do the hand wash. And after using the toilet and before and after having food and before putting on sterile gloves, when there is a visible contamination with a proteinaceous material, blood or body fluid, or after attending to a patient with a suspected or confirmed C. difficile, Clostridium difficile infection, because C. difficile cannot be taken by the hand rub alcohol-based solution. So we have to do hand wash. So these are the few indications where we do hand wash. And remember that gloves is not a substitute for hand hygiene. It must be done before putting on gloves and after removal of the gloves. And here is a slide to show the steps of hand wash. And these are very much important to follow them in sequence to get the full effect of the hand hygiene. And we have to wet the hands with the water and we have to take enough amount of soap and water into our hands to cover all the hand surfaces. And the first step of hand hygiene is rubbing hands palm to palm. We'll keep palms over one on one and we'll rub it with each other. And next, second step of hand hygiene is back side of the palm. That is the dorsum of the palm. We rub the palm over another like that, both the palms. And the third step is the palm to palm with fingers interlaced. Okay, the front of the palms with fingers interlaced like this. And the fourth step is the knuckles part, the back of the fingers in opposite palms, and they are interlocked, and we'll rub them. That is the fourth step. The fifth step is the thumb part. We'll cover the thumb in rotation mode in both the thumbs, both the hands. And the next sixth step is rubbing the fingertips. We'll make a clasp of our fingers into one bunch like thing, and we'll rub them on the opposite palm like this. After that, we'll go for hand wash with plenty of water, and next drying with a towel or a tissue, and close the tab with the same tissue. And now our hands are ready for the procedure. All this hand wash will take 40 to 60 seconds. Next is the hand rub. The 6 steps are same: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. The 6 steps are common for hand rub also, but here instead of water and soap, we'll take the liquid into our hand. Minimum 2 ml we have to take the part, and the hands will be ready. There is no need of any towel or any drying. It will air dry immediately. The hand rub has an advantages over the hand wash because it is easily accessible at the point of care, because hand wash, water and soap cannot be used at every point. So hand rub can be made available at every point of care, and excellent antimicrobial activity against gram-positive and gram-negative vegetative bacteria, Mycobacterium tuberculosis, and a wide range of fungi also it covers. And generally a good antimicrobial activity against the enveloped viruses, especially the COVID and swine flu, H1N1. The enveloped viruses are susceptible to this alcohol-based hand rubs. The few disadvantages of the hand rub or alcohol-based hand rub are less antimicrobial activity against non-enveloped virus like polio, rotavirus, and all those things. So especially the rotaviral and noroviruses infections where pediatric diarrheas are very common. So this hand wash we have to prefer. And there is no activity of this hand rub against the protozoan oocysts and the bacterial spores, especially Clostridium difficile. So whenever you are dealing some diarrhea cases, then the hand wash is a preferred technique than the hand rub. Next, surgical hand scrub. Hand scrubbing with an antiseptic agent before beginning a surgical procedure, whether major or minor, reduces the number of microorganisms and inhibits the growth of microorganisms on hands under the gloves, because the gloves will be worn for a good amount of time. So there should not be any multiplication of the microorganisms underneath. So this surgical scrub is important. The 4% chlorhexidine or 7.5% povidone can be used. We are using traditionally these hand scrubs. Nowadays, these two solutions are getting replaced by an alcohol-based hand scrub, where it is a water-free surgical scrub. There is no need of water, so that there is no need of a towel or a tissue, which is a rare provision in our hospital setups usually. And that can be by isopropyl alcohol or ethanol with an added advantages. Here is a video to show you the hand hygiene. Okay. Then how do we can improve our hand hygiene practices in our setups? By the system change, that is the infrastructure. We need a safe access to a continuous water supply, that is safe and continuous water supply, and liquid soap and towels, or else easily accessible, readily accessible hand rub solutions at the point of care is needed, and periodic training and educations of this popular 5 moments of hand hygiene and the different steps of hand hygiene, and evaluation and feedback, the monitoring hand hygiene practices, the infrastructure, and along with related perceptions. People will have different perceptions. That means some people, they think that their hands become dry, scaly with frequent hand hygiene and all those things. Those perceptions we have to cover, and we have to give knowledge, enough sufficient knowledge to all healthcare workers towards the importance of hand hygiene. And the reminders we have to keep in workplace, like for prompting and reminding the healthcare workers, like the posters or something like that. In my previous workplace, I used to have this bell in kitchen. Like every half an hour, the bell rings. It's a reminder for all the kitchen staff to go for a hand wash. Okay, like that, we can keep a reminder that are feasible to our own workplace. Like that, we can create such an environment. And institutional safety climate, like creating an environment where even the patients, organizations, workers, like ASHA workers, everybody will be participants, active participants of this program. We conduct regular hand hygiene activities, like mass hand hygiene programs and all those things. And we take it as a public awareness program also. So such climate we can create in our healthcare setup. And we are moving to the poll 1. Dr. Srinath, over to you.
Yes. సో ఇప్పుడు మనకు ఒక పోల్ వచ్చింది. అందరికి 1 minute టైం ఉంది. దయచేసి ఆన్సర్ చేయండి. ఫస్ట్ క్వశ్చన్ ఇస్, హౌ మెనీ స్టెప్స్ ఆర్ దేర్ ఇన్ హ్యాండ్ వాషింగ్ ప్రొసీజర్? Options are 8 steps, 7 steps, 9 steps, and 5 steps. Second question is, what is the main purpose of hand hygiene and hand washing? To reduce micro.
Just a minute. Differentiate between steps and moments. Moments of hand washing are separate and steps of hand washing are separate. Yeah, Srinath, you can go.
Yes. What is the main purpose of hand hygiene and hand washing? Options are to reduce microorganisms on the hand, to keep skin healthy, to prevent the spread of infection, all of the above. You have 10 seconds left. Andaru answer cheyali. Okay, I see people are still answering. Let us give you 10 seconds more. Everybody, please answer. 5 seconds more. Okay, now we are stopping the poll. Here are the results of the poll. Ma'am,
Yes.
please.
Yes. Dear audience, yes, I can see the confusion of the steps. Okay, purposefully, I think they have kept it like this. There are 6 steps actually, the 6 moments, okay, which are covered in the previous slides, the hand rub and the hand wash. But the 7th step, you can go for the wrist cleaning also. Okay, and another thing I want to add here is, in the video there is a jewelry in the hand. Okay, the prior to any hand wash or hand rub, taking out all the jewelry of this thing is very much important. So these are the 6 steps that we follow as per the WHO recommendation. And second, it is okay, good. All the above is the answer. Okay, we are moving to the next. Dr. Srinath?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, it's not moving. The next slide.
You can stop sharing the result.
Yes, sir. We have stopped.
Yeah.
It's not moving. My slides are not moving.
No, and even mine are not moving. Can you click on the slide presentation once and now move?
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Then we are moving to the second standard precaution, that is respiratory hygiene or cough etiquette that we have to follow. And the measures taken by a person having signs and symptoms of respiratory infection to contain respiratory secretions and prevent the transmission of the infection to other person. So why we follow this cough etiquette is this to prevent the spread of infections of the respiratory infection that is the person is having, showing the signs and symptoms. And for this, education of healthcare workers, the patients and the visitors is very, very important. For this, we have to keep the patients in at least 1 meter distance, like what we followed for the COVID, and covering the mouth and nose with a tissue when they are coughing or sneezing, and disposing the tissue after usage in the nearest waste container, and performing hand hygiene after contact with the respiratory secretions. And if resources permit, healthcare facilities should ensure the availability of materials such as tissues and foot-operated waste bins for adherence in waiting areas for patients and visitors. And if there is no handkerchief or tissues available with the patient or with the person with cough and sneeze, they can cover their nose and mouth with their arm during cough and sneeze. These are the pictorial depictions. One is covering with a tissue or a napkin whenever they're coughing and sneezing. And second, when there is no tissue or napkin available, they can just cover with their arm like that, sleeves, and disposing the tissue into the dustbin is very, very important. Throwing it at everywhere is not useful. And so provision of foot-operated dustbins in the waiting lobbies, in patient areas, waiting areas is important. And following that, doing hand hygiene is very important to clean the hands. Okay, for this, we can display this material as posters in the hospital premises, wherever all these respiratory infections we know nowadays, especially the SARS-CoV and the flu infections, whooping cough, and other infections, respiratory infections, where they can follow this cough etiquette. And we can avoid close contact with people who are sick, and they can stay at home when they are sick. All this can be showed in the posters, like they can stay at home when they are very sick, and cover their mouth and nose when they are coughing and sneezing, and all those things we can show as posters, as a display boards in the hospital premises. And the third important one is the PPE. Okay, the standard precaution 3. The PPE is the one that is a physical barrier which are used alone or in combination to protect the mucous membranes, airways, skin, and clothing from contact with infectious agents. That includes gloves, masks, aprons, goggles, face shields, hair caps, and the shoes covers, and the heavy duty boots. All these are the PPEs. So PPEs is not a practice that we applied for COVID. It is a practice since 14th century. This is a picture of PPE that used in 14th century for the plague. The plague, which is a rat-borne infection in those days. So for that also they have used PPE, full body covers from top to bottom with a respirator. See, there is a big space of breathing space in this respirator. So such a PPE is, we know, since 14th century. It is not a new thing. And who needs PPE? This is very, very important. Okay, who need the PPE? Healthcare workers who provide direct care to patients and who may come in contact with blood and body fluids, excretions and secretions of the patients, and supporting staff, including cleaners, laundry, and mortuary staff in situations where they may have to contact with the blood and body fluids, and laboratory staff who handle the patient's specimens, and in the hemodialysis units where there is a high risk of transmission of blood-borne infections during cannulation, decannulation, central line connection, disconnection, and dressing of the wound, and all this handling of dialysis equipments. Such conditions, they need this PPE. And the family members who provide care to patients and are in situation where they can come across with the fluid exposure, blood and body fluid exposure, they can also use this PPE. The first one is the gloves. Gloves should be worn as an additional measure, not as a substitute for hand washing. It is not at all a substitute for hand washing. After hand wash, the gloves are to be worn. Gloves are not required for routine care activities such where patient's intact skin touching is not where it demands a glove wearing. Wear gloves when touching blood, body fluids, secretions and excretions, mucous membranes, and non-intact skin of the patients. Change gloves between tasks and procedures on the same patient after contact with potentially infectious material. This is very, very important. If gloves become torn or heavily soiled, and additional patient care tasks must be performed, then change them before starting the next task. It means you have done wound dressing and you have to do a line care. Then you have to change the gloves in between on the same patient. Remove gloves immediately after completion of care or a specific task at the point of use before touching non-contaminated areas and moving to the mobile phone area or safe the buffering zones. So whenever you are finishing a task, leave the gloves there itself only in the specified bin before moving to the buffer zone, and perform hand hygiene immediately after removing the gloves. There are different types of gloves available: clean non-sterile gloves, or sterile single-use gloves, or heavy-duty utility gloves. These non-sterile clean gloves are for examinations and non-surgical procedures, for handling items visibly soiled with blood, body fluids, and excretions of when the healthcare worker has open skin lesions, also any cuts on the skin, also they can use this non-sterile gloves. The sterile single-use gloves should be used for aseptic procedures, and the heavy-duty or utility gloves should be used for decontamination of large equipment, cleaning of floors, walls, and furniture and beds, and this can be reused after cleaning. The heavy duty gloves can be reused after thorough cleaning. The glove usage is very, very important. You have to use specified gloves for a specific procedure. The clean disposable gloves should be available for routine uses, and gloves must be worn in a critical health facilities touching a patient's medical equipment, central lines, peripheral lines, ET sections, and handling lab specimens, dialyzer handling, and cleaning machines, cleaning stations, workstations, and wiping of blood and body fluids. All this can be, these gloves are to be used. They must be changed whenever moving from one patient to other patient or machine to machine. They must be changed after IV cannulation. Once we finish with the IV cannulation, we have to remove the gloves to the next patient. Sterile gloves must be used during procedures requiring aseptic techniques such as central line insertion, blood culture sample collection, sterile body fluid sample collections, and all those things. Remove gloves after the usage on the patient. Do not wear the same gloves for the care of more than one patient, and do not wash gloves between use with the different patients. Okay, perform hand hygiene after removing gloves is very, very important. This is a pyramid of gloves use where the gloves are not indicated. We do multiple tasks where the gloves are not indicated. We do minimal tasks where gloves are indicated, and where we do very minimal, very few tasks where sterile gloves are indicated. So many of our tasks, they don't demand gloves. Some of them, they demand the examination gloves, and very few of them demand the sterile gloves. Know the indications of the gloves. And next we are moving to the aprons or gowns or coveralls. A clean non-sterile apron is generally adequate to protect the skin and prevent soiling of our clothing during procedures and exposure to blood and bloody substances. A fluid-resistant apron or gown should be worn when procedures are likely to generate splashes and sprays of blood and body fluids, especially in the labor room and other rooms. And gowns or aprons preferably must be changed between patients. Okay, then the face masks. Face masks are to be worn where appropriate to protect the mucous membranes of the nose and mouth during procedures, and where activities that generate droplets and splashes or spray of blood and body fluids, secretions and excretions. Masks should fully cover nose and mouth and prevent fluid penetration. And triple-layered surgical masks fitted tightly to the face should be worn and discarded immediately after use. Okay, surgical mask becomes ineffective as a barrier if its integrity is damaged, or it becomes wet with our perspiration or any wetness from the outside also. It is not usable one. There are different respirators available. like our regular N95 mask, what we use, this particulate mask respirator, and half or full face elastometric respirators, these are one. And the third, the highest one, is the powered air purifying respirators, that are the powered air purifying. There will be a motor also with a respirator. These are the different types of respirators available in market. The common respirator we use our conditions is N95 particulate respirator. Okay, the device can filter up to 0.3 microns diameter particles like airborne transmitted diseases like tuberculosis, H1N1 swine flu, the COVID patient care. All these N95 is sufficient, and performing aerosol generating procedures like a bronchoscopy or tracheostomy or dental scaling, drilling, or suctioning of respiratory secretions. In all these conditions, N95 is important. The training of respirator is very, very important. Not only using the respirator, but taking training of proper usage of respirator is very important. How to put on a particulate respirator, need to perform the seal check that madam already told. This is very, very important. Avoiding contamination during usage, touching it multiple times before usage, all this to be avoided. Changing the mask immediately if the respirator gets wet or dirty is important. If patients with known or suspected airborne infections are cohorted, in COVID we have seen a number of patients in same common areas and all those things, and where multiple patients are to be visited sequentially, better to use a single particulate respirator. Don't change the respirators in between cohorted patients or sequential patients. The total duration of the time using a single mask is advisable, and the respirator should not be removed at any time during the activity, and that the user does not touch the respirator also. Next, moving to the shoe covers, there are multiple types of shoe covers available, and these are mainly usable when there is a splash or there is an expected spillage of blood or body fluid is there, or in the OTs and ICUs where the contamination of our street footwear is important. So covering those shoes, these are the pedals where we just keep our foot on that, and it will give a thorough cover of our shoe with a shoe cover. So the shoe cover has a disadvantage that wearing a shoe cover is okay with this equipment, but taking the shoe cover out is again with our hands, so we have to do hand hygiene immediately after removing the shoe covers. These are different types of shoes we use on our OTs and ICUs. These are the heavy duty booties that healthcare workers dealing with storeroom, biomedical waste, plumbing, electrical people will use these heavy duty booties. And the face shield and goggles, when the skin protection additional to the nose and mouth protection is required, in such conditions we use this face shield. The goggles also will cover the eye mucosa also, and it has to cover the sides also, the chin and the side part of the face also it has to cover. What are the high-risk pathogens that we come across in our regular work is the viruses, especially the filoviruses like Ebola, Marburg, and this is all very rare, Casnos-Forest disease and other things, and the new strains of influenza that we are coming across, and the COVID also we know, and the Nipah viruses also we are going to face, and the multi-drug resistant Mycobacterium tuberculosis and multi-drug resistant gram-negative bacilli, the MRSA, the Staphylococcus aureus, which is resistant to methicillin, and Enterococcus, which is resistant to vancomycin, and Candida auris and Clostridium difficile. These are all high-risk pathogens which demands the PPE wearing in our regular practice. The PPE training is very important. Every healthcare worker should be trained on the uses of PPE as part of their IPC training. The training should address the protocols adopted by a specific facility. Each facility will have its own protocol, like what PPE are to be used for each specific activity. All these are to be there in a written format. The competency of the healthcare workers are to be tested frequently. How competent are they in putting on and taking off the PPE? And adequate resources of human and material, that are different sizes of PPE shapes, different like male and female segregation, or depending on the size of the PPE, the stocks are to be ready. And the quality of the items that we are purchasing are to be checked every time with a new lot. And reporting of the shortages. For this, all this, we need our resources. Written protocols for the stepwise donning and doffing of PPE is important. Written protocols for management of used and contaminated PPE, how we are going to discard them, how we are going to disinfect them. All these are important protocols, and appropriate spaces are to be provided for the donning and doffing of the staff, and the use of trained observers. This is an important point. By keeping trained observers at the time of donning and doffing, we can assess the capabilities of the our healthcare workers and to check the integrity of the PPE. Sometimes we have faced during COVID, while wearing the PPE, sometimes it gets torn, the zip goes off. Okay, there are multiple things we faced with the PPE. So for that, the observer will take up all those responsibilities, and they make sure that it is well adjusted and it covered all the surfaces, all the health important areas of the healthcare worker, the mucosa and all those things. And they will put up a name and the role of the person on the back of the dress, and when they are entering into the high risk zone. So the trained observer is very, very important. If this is not feasible, then keeping a full length mirror in the donning and doffing room also serves the same thing. PPE should be restricted to areas where it is necessary and has a specific purpose. Any protective clothing worn by healthcare worker has to be left in the same area. If it is a laboratory PPE, they have to leave it before leaving the lab area, like that. Protective clothing or PPE which has been in contact with patients should not be worn outside the patient care area. So those PPE meant for ICU that are to be worn within ICU only, they can't come around and go for OPs and all those things, the same PPE. And we have to post different posters and information material in the patient care areas and for the healthcare workers donning and doffing sequences and all those things. Okay, we are moving to poll 2. Dr. Srinath, over to you.
Yes, yes, ma'am. Okay, ఇప్పుడు మనకు ఇంకో పోల్ రాబోతుంది. Okay, the first question is, which among the following is a cough etiquette? Sneezing, coughing by covering mouth and nose with a tissue, sneezing and coughing covering mouth and nose with hands, followed by hand hygiene, disposing the tissue into a waste bin after use, all of the above. Or options A and C. Okay, and clean non-sterile gloves should be used for floor cleaning, decontamination of large equipment, aseptic procedures, and examination and non-surgical procedures. 15 seconds more. Everybody, please answer. Andaru answer cheyali. We'll give you 20 more seconds. Please answer, everybody. Ten seconds more. Okay, we are now about to stop the poll. So here are the results. Ma'am, please continue.
Yes. Okay. The options are little tricky somehow. Okay. The first is okay. Most of them answered the question. Okay. The second one is like how to see that a clean non-sterile gloves or examination gloves. So they can be used for aseptic procedures and for examination and non-surgical procedures also. Okay. Okay, we are moving to the next presentation. Dr. Srinath?
Yes, ma'am. You
we'll
can
move to the next class.
Yes, ma'am. Sure.
Click on the slide first, and then it will start moving. No, we cannot. Yeah.
Yes.
Can you close the results part?
Yes, ma'am. We have closed
it. Okay. This is someone else's slides, I think.
Ma'am, this slide is about the PPE donning and doffing.
Okay, this is the video.
Yes, ma'am.
Supposed to. Okay.
Is there a slide before this?
No, I don't remember, sir, actually.
Yeah. Okay,
Ma'am,
fine,
there-
ma'am. Please go ahead.
Okay.
Audio is not. There is no audio, Srinath.
Yes, sir. Ma'am, can you please stop the video?
Yes.
Ma'am, I'll share the video.
Yes. Okay.
Can you please stop your screen sharing? I'll share the video and then you can reshare it again.
So I have to stop sharing my screen first.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
I'm sharing the video. Ma'am, is it visible?
Yes.
Namaste. We from AIIMS New Delhi would like to demonstrate the donning and doffing methods in easy steps for the protection of our healthcare workers working in COVID designated areas. Donning or wearing the personal protective equipment must be performed outside the COVID ward in the donning designated area. Healthcare worker must take a meal, go to the washroom and drink water prior to entering the donning area. Remove all accessories like jewelry, watch, wallet, mobile phones, etc. and change into clean hospital scrubs. Wash your hands thoroughly with soap and water. First, perform hand hygiene. Wear the first pair of gloves, which may be sterile or unsterile. Make sure that the cuff of the glove goes as far as possible. Examine the coverall suit for any damage, including tears. Start by wearing the leg sleeves. Then the arm sleeves. And zip up. Cover the zip with the flap attached over the zip. Now sit on a clean chair and wear the shoe covers and pull them up till your calves. Hold the N95 mask like a cup in your hand with both the straps hanging out in the front. Place the mask on your face. Pull and wear the lower strap first, placing it below your ears. Then pull and wear the upper strap, placing it above your ears. The most important step is to check that there should not be more than minimal air leakage around the mask when forcibly exhaling. Now wear the hood covering the forehead and the cheeks. Now wear the face shield over the hood and ensure the fit. Tighten or loosen the face shield with the help of the screw at the back. Now wear the second pair of gloves. Pull them to cover the sleeve cuff and forearms as much as possible. You are now ready to enter the COVID area. Doffing or taking off the personal protective equipment must be done in the designated doffing area having red biomedical waste bins labeled separately for each type of PPE. There should be 2 chairs labeled as clean and dirty, preferably made of plastic or metal, which are easy to disinfect. It is very essential to perform each step with utmost care and slowly so as to not generate any aerosol. Perform the hand hygiene after each step. Take the help of the observer to check for any leaks or tear in the personal protective equipment. During the entire doffing procedure, the observer must not touch your PPE. Inspect your PPE for any gross contamination, which could be disinfected with the help of alcohol-based wipes. Disinfect your gloves with alcohol-based hand rub. It should be ideally dispensed from an automated system with the help of your buddy or by pressing the nozzle with your elbow to prevent any contamination. Sit on the dirty chair with legs apart. Remove the shoe covers by slowly pulling the outer surface, starting from the top, and then pull them from the toes end. Try not to cross over your legs while sitting. Discard them in the red bin. Disinfect the outer gloves. Next step is to remove the outer pair of gloves. Be careful so as to not tear or contaminate the inner glove. Pinch the first glove on the outer surface at the wrist and pull it inside out. Hold this glove in the other hand like a ball. Now slide your thumb inside the other glove and remove inside out, balling around the previous glove, making it into a single bag. Now disinfect the inner gloves. Loosen the face shield by adjusting the screw and remove by holding it from the back handle. Discard in the labeled bin. Now disinfect the inner gloves. First, slide back the hood by holding it from the top. separate the zip flap and unzip the coverall suit. Holding the suit at the arms, slide it off the shoulders slightly. Then pull the suit from the side of the waist and roll your arms out one. By touching the inner surface of the suit, carefully roll out each leg. And discard it in the designated bin. Disinfect the inner gloves. Now carefully remove the inner pair of gloves as previously described. Perform hand hygiene by using the 6 steps of hand wash. Now wear a new pair of gloves before removing the mask. Do not touch the exposed surface of the mask. Stoop forward and first remove the lower strap. Then carefully remove the mask by pulling out the upper strap. Disinfect your gloves again. Using alcohol wipes, clean the outer surface of your shoes while sitting on a clean chair. Again, disinfect the gloves. Now remove the last pair of gloves. Perform hand hygiene again. Now you're ready to exit the doffing area. Wipe your shoes on a sodium hypochlorite soaked doormat at the exit.
Ma'am, you can share your screen and continue with the presentation.
Yes. Okay. The fourth standard precaution that I'm going to cover is the needle stick injury or sharp injury in the hospital setups. And coming to the epidemiology of blood and blood-borne body fluid-borne pathogens, Dr. Ratnamani ma'am already covered. So mostly it is the HIV virus and hepatitis B and the hepatitis C we cover in all our pre and post-exposure prophylaxis towards the sharp injuries. Okay, the transmission rates all over the world are more for the hepatitis B before the vaccination. So with the hepatitis B vaccination as a pre-exposure prophylaxis or as an universal precaution, the hepatitis C transmission rates are now increasing. The HIV needs a substantial amount of blood and body fluid for its transmission. So it is very rare to get transmitted because of the sharp injuries that we face in our hospital setups. So the locations of our different hospital areas where the maximum exposure happens is the inpatient areas and the operation rooms, and followed by the procedure rooms and the outpatients and the emergency department. And the personnel who gets exposure to maximum is the nurses, that is 42%, followed by physicians and followed by technicians. And the different sharp injuries we come across regularly is the needles, the hypodermic needle exposures, that is a needle stick injury, followed by sutures, the surgical sutures and all those things, followed by winged steel needles and other things. Okay, these are the different sharp injuries that we come across in our occupational exposures. So safe handling of sharps is very, very important, and the discard procedures and all those things are important. And whenever there is a role of recapping needed, that where you have to follow the scoop method with a single hand technique, and used needles should be bent, should not be broken or bent in any this thing. Nowadays there are equipment available to burn the needles and all those to be avoided. There is no need for bending or breaking the needle. We have to just discard them into the proper container. Used sharps should be disposed immediately in designated puncture proof containers that are labeled with biohazard symbol, located in the area where they gets directly into the disposal area. Can be disposed by incinerator or deep bed burial, or to the outsource, handing over to the outsource agency as per the healthcare facility policy of the waste disposal. And sharp disposal containers must be located away from public access. A handful of sharp instruments must not be picked up simultaneously at a time. We can't handle multiple sharps. While handling and passing sharps, the sharp end of the instrument shall be positioned away from oneself and others. And if injured by sharps, reporting it immediately for further managements, for source testing and risk analysis and post-exposure prophylaxis is very, very important. Written post-exposure prophylaxis protocol for important blood-borne pathogens for all three, HIV, hepatitis B and HCV. PEP is in a written document is very, very important. And this is the scoop method of one-handed recapping technique. Place when there is a, once used the syringe, okay, with a needle, place the cap on the hard flat surface and scoop the cap with the end of the needle so that the cap is sitting on the needle. Then press the cap and it will flip and it snaps into the place. Like that we can use a single hand technique. And before beginning a procedure, by organizing the equipment at the point of use and making sure of the workplace adequate light, and keeping sharps away from the users, and keeping the sharp disposal container immediate to the usage area, and counseling the patient to not to move during the procedure. All these are important to minimize the sharp injuries. Do not hand pass sharps from one person to other. There are sharp passing material available like this trace. By keeping it on that, we can pass on the sharps from person to person during the procedures. Using predetermined neutral zones for placing and retrieving the sharps is important. Alert others when sharps are being passed, and be accountable for the sharps that are used by the person. And double glove technique acts as a perforation indicator. Whenever there is a sharp injury and there is a breach in the gloves, we can make it out by using a colored inner glove and a transparent outer glove. So this indicator system can even make out very small holes of 30 microns. It is in a double-blind randomized study. They have proven that 30 micron size hole also can be made by the audience during the sharp injury. Moving to the pole 3, Dr. Srinath.
Yes, ma'am. Starting. సో ఇన్ దిస్ పోల్, ఈ పోల్లో మనకు మ్యాచ్ ద ఫాలోయింగ్ ఉంది. అందుకే మీరు ఈ స్లైడ్ మీద ఆన్సర్స్ కరెక్ట్ గా చూసి అప్పుడు మీరు పోల్లో కరెక్ట్ గా సెలెక్ట్ చేసుకోండి. ఫైండ్ ద కరెక్ట్ సీక్వెన్స్ ఆఫ్ డాఫింగ్ అ పీపీ. ఆప్షన్స్ ఆర్ రిమూవ్ outer gloves, remove face mask, remove face shield, and then last is remove gown. Please enter the correct answer. We have 30 seconds more. అందరూ దయచేసి ఆన్సర్ చేయాలి. Remember doffing a PPE. Options are remove outer gloves, remove face mask, remove face shield, and remove gown. Everybody please answer. Fifteen seconds more. అందరూ దయచేసి ఆన్సర్ చేయాలి. 5 seconds more. Okay, now we are stopping the poll. Ma'am, the results have been shared.
Yeah. Yeah, whatever be the options, we take the face mask in the last step. That is the last thing we do. Just before leaving the doffing room, we'll take the mask out. So that will be the last step. So I think ACDB is the sequence that we have to. I'm not able to see the slide here, like the options here. I'm seeing just the polls.
The correct answer is option 3, ma'am.
Yes. Okay.
Option C.
C, ACDB. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. Next, we move to the next slide.
Yes, ma'am, you can. Please click on this. Okay.
I think you have to, yeah.
Injection safety.
Yes. Yeah, there are multiple types of sharp disposal containers available. Some can be fixed onto the wall and can be locked, and some can be used on the bedside for single patient, especially when the patient is with hepatitis B or HIV positive. We can use a single patient small containers we can discard when the patient gets discharged, and these are the regular or hospital uses sharp containers, and this can be handled very easily. So all these are puncture proof containers, transparent without any filling. There is no need of hypo solution or anything. Once it is filled 3/4, you can discard it or hand it over to the agency who handles the sharps. The infection control practitioner or infection control committee responsibilities towards the sharp injuries is they have to create a safe work culture with the periodic trainings and workshops, and encouraging the incidents reporting. There are forms available for the incidents reporting where there are multiple areas like how the injury happened, to whom it happened, at what like what stage of the procedure it happened, the actual description of the incidents, and what is the depth of injury happened, and all those things, immediately what has been done, and all these things will be there in the form. So analyzing the data from the incident reporting form is very, very important to avoid further sharp injuries in the healthcare facility. And evaluating the devices, sharp devices periodically is very important. And establishing safe staffing pattern, like an experienced staffing where the sharps are dealt, is very, very important. Annual needle stick injury report, and where the number of sharp injuries, categories of health workers getting exposed, and common procedures and common ways of needle stick injury. Is it happening during passage of the sharp or something like recapping? All those can be discussed in that one. And planning alternate strategies can be done with this annual reporting. And vaccination status of healthcare workers have to be reviewed every time. And every new joined staff has to be sensitized towards this hospital infection control protocols. And use a new injection and some of the protocols to be safe with the injections, and use a new injection device for each procedure, including for the reconstitution of a unit of medication or vaccine, and inspect the package of the injection device to ensure that the protective barrier has not been breached, and discard the device if the package has been punctured or exposed. And injections should be prepared in a designated clean area where contamination by blood and body fluids is unlikely. That's why there is a preparation room for every ward. So in that preparation room, all the injections are to be prepared, and clean the preparation surface with 70% isopropyl alcohol or ethanol and allow it to dry before making the preparation. And do not carry medication vials, syringes, alcohol swabs, and other things in the pockets. Use trays specified for each patient. In between the patients, you have to wipe the trays. Assemble all equipment needed for the injections: sterile single-use needles, syringes, reconstitution solution, sterile water, specific diluent, alcohol swab, cotton wool, sharp container, discarding container, everything you have to keep by the side of the procedure. Do not use pre-soaked cotton wool as there is a chance of contamination. And when it comes to multi-dose vials, whenever possible, use a single dose vial for each patient to reduce cross-contamination between patients. Open only one vial of a particular medication at a time in each patient care area. If possible, keep one multi-dose vial for each patient. Like that, each multi-dose vial, you have to keep it for the same patient with his name written on the vial. And do not store multi-dose vials in the open ward or general patient care area where they could be inadvertently contaminated. And before use, examine the vial for turbidity, any particulate matter, any sediment in the one, discoloration, discard if immediately anything is observed. And never leave a needle or cannula inserted into the medication vial like this. Okay, the date and discard of the opening discard from the opening of the multi-dose vial has to be written on this, like that: name of the patient, the vial opening date, the vial expires on date. So any multi-dose vial we have to discard within 28 days. Okay, single dose vials, reconstitution solutions are available like this, 5 to 10 ml. Reconstitution fluids, sterile water is available. Instead of using bags or big containers for making the preparation, we can use this single vial, this thing, so that we can prevent the cross contamination. And coming to the summary, and Srinath, can I read out, or you will go through in Telugu?
Ma'am, I'll go through in Telugu. Please change it to Telugu slides.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am, for the beautiful presentation. ఇప్పుడు మనము దీని సమ్మరీ తెలుగులో చూద్దాము. ప్రామాణిక జాగ్రత్తలు రోగులను మరియు ఆరోగ్య సిబ్బందిని క్రాస్ ఇన్ఫెక్షన్ల నుండి కాపాడతాయి. అంటే మనకు ఏదైతే మనకు దేని గురించి అయితే తెలుసు, అంటే ఇది చేస్తే మనకు ఇన్ఫెక్షన్లు రావు అనేది మనకు తెలుసు, అంటే మనము ఆ చర్యలు పాటిస్తే మనకు క్రాస్ ఇన్ఫెక్షన్స్ అనేవి ఉండవు. ఇన్ఫెక్షన్ల వ్యాప్తి అరికట్టడానికి క్రిమినాశకాలు వాడటం, అంటే డిస్ఇన్ఫెక్టెంట్స్ మనము వాడాలి. సంక్రమణ వ్యాప్తించే మూలాలను అనగా మనిషి, నీళ్లు, పశువులు, ఆహారం మొదలైన వాటిని జాగ్రత్త పరచాలి. అంటే ఇన్ఫెక్షన్లు జనరల్ గా ఒక మనిషి నుండి ఇంకో మనిషికి, లేదంటే నీళ్ల ద్వారా, లేదంటే పశువుల ద్వారా, లేదంటే ఆహారం ద్వారా వస్తాయి కాబట్టి వాటిని కూడా మనము జాగ్రత్త పరచాలి. వ్యాధి సోకిన రోగుల నుండి సంభావ్య రోగులను రక్షించడం, అంటే కొంతమంది ఉంటారు వాళ్ళు ఆల్రెడీ వీక్ గా ఉంటారు, వాళ్లకు ఇన్ఫెక్షన్లు సోకే ఛాన్స్ ఎక్కువ ఉంటది. అలాంటి వాళ్ళని, ఎవరికైతే ఇన్ఫెక్షన్ ఉంది, ఎవరికైతే వ్యాధి ఉంది, అలాంటి వాళ్ళతో నుండి వాళ్లకు దూరంగా ఉంచాలి. ముక్కు, నోరు వంటి ఇన్ఫెక్షన్ సోకే మార్గాలను కాపాడటం, రక్తం వల్ల సోకే వ్యాధుల గురించి చేతి తొడుగులు వాడటం, అంటు వ్యాధుల కొరకు PPE వాడటం, మాస్క్. ఈ COVID-19 లో మనం అందరము ముఖ్యంగా వాడేది మాస్క్. అలాంటి ఇప్పుడు ఎయిర్ బోర్న్ ఇన్ఫెక్షన్స్ ఏవైతే ఉన్నాయో అవన్నీ మనకు ముక్కు ద్వారా ముక్కు కానీ నోటి ద్వారా కానీ లోపలికి ప్రవేశిస్తాయి. సో అలాంటివి మనము కాపాడుకుంటే మనకు ఇంకా మంచిది. మళ్ళీ COVID-19 వల్ల దగ్గు మర్యాదలు ప్రాముఖ్యతను మనము తెలుసుకున్నాము. ఇంతకు ముందు మనము గమనిస్తే అందరూ రోడ్ మీద దగ్గేటప్పుడు కూడా ఎవరు సరిగ్గా నోరు కప్పడం కానీ ముక్కును కప్పడం కానీ అట్లాంటివి చేయకపోతుంది. ఇప్పుడు కోవిడ్ తర్వాత మనము ఎలా దగ్గాలి, ఎలా తుమ్మాలి, నలుగురు మనుషుల్లో ఉన్నప్పుడు ఎలా మనం ప్రవర్తించాలి అనేది నేర్చుకున్నాము. పీపీఈని సరైన సమయంలో మరియు సరైన పద్ధతిలో ఉపయోగిస్తే రోగికి మరియు ఆరోగ్య సిబ్బందికి ప్రయోజకరమైనది. అంటే పీపీఈని మనము కరెక్ట్ టైంలో కరెక్ట్ పద్ధతిలో ధరిస్తే ఆరోగ్య సంరక్షణ సిబ్బంది మరియు పేషెంట్ ఇద్దరికి మంచిది. సంస్థాగత ప్రోటోకాల్స్ పీపీఈ జాబితా, పీపీఈ ధరించే పద్ధతి. అంటే పీపీఈ ధరించడానికి ఒక పద్ధతి ఉంది, మనం ఆ వీడియోలో చూసాము. అలాంటి పద్ధతులు మనం అందరూ పాటిస్తే మనకు ఇన్ఫెక్షన్లు సోకకుండా ఉంటాయి. ఆవర్తన శిక్షణాలు, పీపీఈ కోసం కొత్త ఉద్యోగి సెన్సిటైజేషన్ ప్రోగ్రామ్, సమగ్రత తనిఖీ మరియు ఉల్లంఘనలు. పీపీఈ ఎవరైతే మన దగ్గర కొత్తగా జాయిన్ అయిన వాళ్ళు ఉంటారు వాళ్ళకు కూడా మనము పీపీఈ ఎలా ధరించాలి అనేది చెప్పాలి. వాళ్ళకు ఒకవేళ వచ్చినా గానీ మనము మళ్ళీ ఇంకొకసారి వాళ్ళకు మన పద్ధతి గురించి బాగా చెప్పాలి. సంస్థాగత ప్రోటోకాల్స్, షార్ప్ సేఫ్ హ్యాండ్లింగ్, యాక్సిడెంట్ రిపోర్టింగ్ సిస్టమ్, రిస్క్ అసెస్మెంట్, ఇంకా పీఈపీ గురించి కూడా వాళ్ళకు చెప్పాలి. చేతి పరిశుభ్రత, శ్వాసకు సంబంధించిన పరిశుభ్రత, షార్ప్ హ్యాండ్లింగ్, పీపీఈ వేసుకునే మరియు తీసే పద్ధతిని గుర్తించి పోస్టర్లు ఉండాలి. అంటే షార్ప్ హ్యాండ్లింగ్ ఏవైతే ఉంటాయో వాటి గురించి కానీ, లేదంటే పీపీఈ ఎలా వేసుకోవాలి అన్న పోస్టర్. ఇప్పుడు మనం ఎక్కడైతే పీపీఈ వేసుకుంటామో అక్కడ పీపీఈ ఎలా వేసుకోవాలి దాని గురించి పోస్టర్ అంటిస్తే ఎవరైతే వేసుకుంటున్నారో వాళ్ళు ఖచ్చితంగా ఆ పోస్టర్ చూసి రోజుకు రోజు మర్చిపోకుండా నేర్చుకుంటారు బాగా. ఇంకా షార్ప్ హ్యాండ్లింగ్ గురించి కూడా మనము అక్కడ షార్ప్ ఎక్కడైతే మనం డిస్పోజ్ చేస్తామో అక్కడే అలాంటి పోస్టర్స్ మనము పెట్టేస్తే వాటి గురించి కూడా సౌకర్యవంతంగా ఉంటుంది. Yes, madam. We will, Lakshmi garu, definitely we'll share the donning and doffing PPE as soon as the session is over. Over to you, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, thank you, everyone. Okay, so we covered in the previous Thursday, we covered all the chain of infection, modes of transmission, all the infection control protocols and all those things. In this session, we covered occupational safety and standard precautions. And so followed by the next class will be transmission based protocols. That is the second level of standard precautions. And with all these protocols, by making them adherent, అంటే మనం వాటన్నిటిని బాగా అప్లై చేసి వాడడం వల్ల together we can make a safe hospital environment to the patient as well as to the healthcare worker also. మనల్ని మనం సేఫ్ గా ఉంచుకోవడంతో పాటు పేషెంట్ ని కూడా సేఫ్ గా ఉంచగలము from the hospital acquired infections. Thank you everyone, and thank you Dr. Sridhar and Srinath. It's a highlight. Your Telugu translation is a highlight of the session. Thank you everyone.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. We have a few hand raises, ma'am. Let us see if they are willing to talk to us.
Yes.
Zeenat Syed. Please unmute yourself and you can ask the question. Zeenat Syed garu. जीनत सैयद जी, आप अनम्यूट करके क्वेश्चन पूछ सकते हो.
I think we can move ahead.
Okay, Lakshmi garu, there is another hand raise. Please unmute and ask the question. Lakshmi garu.
Hello.
చెప్పండి మేడం.
Sir, could you tell the disinfection of scissors in labor room, sir? Hello.
Yes madam.
Sir, are you hearing, sir?
Yes madam, we got your question. Ma'am, do you want to take this?
Yeah, Lakshmi amma.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. ఇప్పుడు ఏం చేస్తున్నారు మీరు? How you are sterilizing your labor room equipment?
మేడం మేము సిజర్స్ ని డెటాల్ లో వేస్తున్నాం మేడం. డైలీ 24 hours ఒకసారి డెటాల్ చేంజ్ చేస్తున్నాం మేడం.
ఓకే. ఈ రోజుల్లో అంటే లైక్ నౌడేస్ ఇట్స్ ఆల్ డెటాల్ కీపింగ్ ఇట్ ఇన్ డిస్ఇన్ఫెక్టెంట్ సొల్యూషన్ ఇదంతా రూల్ అవుట్ అయిపోయిందమ్మా. వీ కాంట్ యూజ్ సచ్ టెక్నిక్స్. ఓకే, యూ కెన్ యూజ్ సైడెక్స్ సొల్యూషన్ ఫర్ దట్. గ్లూట్రాల్డిహైడ్ సొల్యూషన్ సైడెక్స్ సొల్యూషన్ ఉంటుంది. లైక్ హౌ అవర్ ఎండోస్కోప్స్ ఇవన్నీ మనం ఎలా అయితే క్లీన్ చేస్తామో అలాగే ఆల్ డ్రెస్సింగ్ మెటీరియల్స్ కానీ all sharp equipments we can use with the glutaraldehyde if you need it. If not, you can send it for autoclave.
ఓకే మేడం. హలో మేడం.
చెప్పమ్మా.
మేడం కానీ సిజర్స్ ఆటోక్లేవ్ కి పంపిస్తే అవి షార్ప్స్ లేకుండా పోతుంది, బ్లంట్ అవుతుందని చెప్తారు కదా మేడం.
లేదమ్మా, లేదు. ఇట్ డజంట్ మీన్ దట్ అంటే ఆఫ్థల్మాలజీ ఎక్విప్మెంట్ అంతా స్టెరిలైజ్ చేయరంటారా, ప్లాస్టిక్ సర్జరీ ఎక్విప్మెంట్ అంటే అలా లేదు. దెర్ ఆర్ కంటైనర్స్ ఫర్ షార్ప్స్. వీ కెన్ యూజ్ దట్ బై ప్యాకింగ్ దెమ్ ప్రాపర్లీ. Okay, we have to autoclave them. In between patients, if you need immediate sterilization edana kavali ante, then you have to use this high level disinfection, that is Sidex glutaraldehyde solution. Meeku advaindamma. There are two types of sterilization of equipment. One is autoclaving, second is high level disinfection.
Okay ma'am.
Those equipment which doesn't suit for autoclaving, then we use high level disinfection.
Okay madam.
Like endoscope, okay, laparoscope equipment, all those things we use high level disinfection with chemicals.
మేడం గ్లూటారాల్డిహైడ్ కి పర్సెంటేజ్ ఏమన్నా ఉందా మేడం?
ఎస్ అమ్మ, దాంట్లో కంటైనర్ లో ఉంటుంది చూడండి. మీరు సైడెక్స్ అనేది ఏదైనా తీసుకుంటే దాంట్లో విత్ యాక్టివేటరా వితౌట్ యాక్టివేటర్ అని ఉంటుంది. విత్ యాక్టివేటర్ అంటే ఓపీఏ అని ఉంటుంది. దాంతో అయితే లైక్ ఇట్ గివ్స్ యూ ద డైల్యూషన్ హౌ టు మిక్స్ ఇట్ అండ్ హౌ మచ్ ఈచ్ హ్యాస్ టు బి మిక్స్డ్ విత్ గ్లూటారాల్డిహైడ్ విత్ ఓపీఏ and how much time you have to keep also దాంట్లో మెన్షన్ చేసి ఉంటుంది.
ఓకే మేడం. ఓకే,
డిపెండ్స్ ఆన్ ద ప్రిపరేషన్, కంపెనీ ప్రిపరేషన్ మాన్యువల్.
ఓకే మేడం. ఓకే, థ్యాంక్ యూ సో మచ్ మ్యామ్.
ఓకే, థ్యాంక్ యూ.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Sir, do you want to add anything?
No. I think ma'am has covered very nicely because how long you keep is solution specific. So how you prepare the solution based on the concentration you keep, the duration you keep in the solution will depend on that. That's why read the instruction on the Sidex bottle and it will tell you how to do it. Okay. And one more thing I want to add is a lot of people use phenol or carboxylic acid. It is not a very strong disinfectant. So for any high risk procedure for your floors and all, it is okay, but for sterilizing equipments and all, please don't use that, and it is also an irritant. So
may I just add something?
yeah, please. Dr.
So as Dr. Gayatri was saying, Sidex is usually 2% glutaraldehyde concentration. That is what it is. And again, as she said, Sidex OPA does not need activator and it can be used directly. The contact time is, as per the manufacturer, he says 5 minutes, but we tend to make it 10 minutes because the moment we say 5, they'll take it out in 3 minutes. So that is one thing. So that can be used.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am.